All right, hey guys, how you guys doing? This video is just gonna be to introduce you guys to how to make the foundations in Revit. Hopefully, I can get you guys past all the um, technicalities of it. There's some things that you think are simple, but then are tricky. But I'll get you guys right through that. And once we're, I'm just gonna do a portion of the building to get you guys through the foundations, and you guys be on your way, and hopefully, you can even finish it before 4 weeks, and we can move on to the next part. Okay. So what I'm going to be showing you guys will be this top corner. So if you look on the foundation plan, you have the basement and the first floor, both foundations because the building is on an incline. I'm going to work with you guys throughout this corner over here. Hopefully that will go through enough for you guys. Okay. Um, so first off, let's open a new file on Revit. Again, Imperial Multidiscipline, now that we have Revit 2024. And I'm going to share my opinion with you guys now that I'm a little bit familiar with Revit 2024. I feel like some things aren't needed, so I'm going to just show you guys some of my preferences. And if you don't agree, you don't have to do the same. But what I'm going to do is, off the bat, these reference planes on the middle, I've never used them. I don't feel they're necessary. This section cut right here, I feel like when we need the section cut on our building, we can put it there ourselves. So I'm going to also delete it. Okay. The scope box, I don't believe it's necessary. I'm going to delete it. And then I'm going to turn off our crop view right here. And then actually what I'm going to do first is on the view here, I'm going to scroll down until we see extents. And where it says scope box views overall, I'm going to change it to none. What this is going to do is we have this button right here, which is a do not crop view button, and it allows us to see anything that's drawn outside of the crop view. For example, here I drew the wall outside of it and it doesn't let us see us. And I think it's a great button, but we don't have access to it because our view has our scope box says views overall. So we're gonna go to our properties box, property tab over here, extents, and on scope box where it says views overall, we're gonna change it to none and apply. Now we have access to this button, and as you can see, if we click it here now, we'll be able to see outside of the box, okay? And then I believe, yep. So if you hide the crop region, there's actually another scope box hidden behind it. I'm also gonna delete that guy. I'm gonna reactivate the crop region, and then everything that's inside here, it's useful, but we don't have to see it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna select it. This, you can put it to your project later, or unhide it later. But as of now, I'm just gonna hide everything because I don't want anything getting in the way of my drawing. And then I'm just gonna reactivate the crop view just so I can see what I'm drawing inside of. Because you can't forget the north, south, east, and west elevations are still inside this box. So if you draw outside of it, your drawing might not show on the elevations. So we're gonna just try to draw inside this box, okay? And if you don't want to see it, of course you can hide. First things first, this is a structural project of the STEAM services. And obviously we have already worked with the architectural project. Some things are similar, and I think it would be a waste of time for us to not use that. So I'm gonna show you guys how to do that, okay? You do not want to use the same file. If you did, it would just be wasting your time because you have to get the file, select everything, and then delete everything that you don't need. This is a better approach. So we're going to start the new file just like I've shown you, get rid of the things that you don't need if you want. And then you go ahead and open your old file, and let's get the grids from there, okay? This right here is my structural drawing. You're going to use your architectural drawing, and you guys don't have these grids. You have from 9 to 11 and HF here. But what you're going to do is you're going to select the whole drawing. And before, I have taught you that you're able to change the properties of certain things by selecting them here. But what you can also do is you can click on this filter above, and you can check none. And then you can check only the things that you actually want to be selected. So I'm going to select everything, click on filter, and then I'm gonna check none, and then I'm gonna hit grids because I only want the grids from this drawing, okay? Now that I have the grids, I'm gonna hit Control C. Sorry about that. I'm gonna hit Control C. I'm gonna go to our new drawing over here. I'm gonna hit Control V. Okay, and now we can see all our grids in this drawing, no problem, really quick. Awesome. We can do the same thing for our elevations in our levels. So I'm going to open elevations. I'm just going to go to east here. We can see that we have L1 and L2. I'm going to go back to our my structural drawing, but you just go back to your architectural drawing. Use the fact that all the elevations are just off the side to not select anything else. We're going to hit Control C. I'm going to go to our original drawing that we're starting, hit Control V, and just put it down. It's going to be a little messed up just because it's hard to put it exactly where you want it. But we have a level 1 where it says 0, and we know that first floor is at 0 in our original drawing. So I'm going to use the Move tool while everything is selected. I'm going to take the tip of the first floor here and line it up with the first floor that we have right here. Cool. And unfortunately, it does not create floor plans for us. We still only have these two originals, which I'm actually going to get rid of. And then what we're going to do is, first of all, make sure that everything, all the grids and all the levels are cohesive and showing up on every view. In this case right here, you can see that the letter grids only go down to lower floor. They actually only go down to first floor, don't even touch the lower floor. So we're going to click on them and use this hollow circle right here to drag them down. They might not all be grouped together, so just make sure that you get all of them below so that you can actually see these grids when you're on your floor plan view, okay? And we dealt with the east, which in turn deals with the west. Let's deal with the north/south, okay? And these guys are also really off the way, so just gonna make sure that everything looks good, okay? So just dragging everything so it's inside our scope box, not our scope box, our crop view, and just drag everything down as well. Okay, double check, east and west, north and south, they're both good. So just like that, we have all our grids. I mean, I have all my grids and all my levels. You're gonna have about a third of your grids, and then more than a third of your grids, and then all your levels as well. Okay. Like I said, it unfortunately does not create the floor plan. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to View. Okay. We copied all the levels, but it doesn't create the floor plan. So we're gonna go to the View tab, and then Plan Views, and then Floor Plan, and then all we're gonna do is select all of these guys and hit OK. And now we have all of our floor plans back again. Perfect. So what I'm going to be working with is this corner, which, as I mentioned, is on the first floor, right? These are both foundations. This is lower because the building has an elevation. So, yeah. So let's work off of this corner right here, which is on the first floor. So back to Revit. I'm on the first floor. So let's go to first floor. Gonna X out of the thing that I don't need here. And then off to this corner. Okay. What you guys can also do is reutilize some components so that you guys don't have to recreate it. So in this case, I'm gonna go to your old drawing and I'm gonna take a wall. Okay, so this is the EW3 wall that we had. And I'm just gonna hit Control C, go back to our first floor, hit Control V. Okay, it's gonna bring all of those materials and the assembly back into it. I'm just gonna paste it, and then you can see that wall right there. Okay, and then I don't actually need the wall itself. I just pasted it in so that when we go to wall, we have our EW3 right here. Okay. For working with this project, we're going to be able to do everything off of the structure tab. We're going to be working with walls, concrete, as well as steel columns, and then isolated foundations, as well as wall foundations, and then of course our floor slabs. All right. So off of this corner, I'm not sure if you guys remember, but the walls aren't perfectly centered with the grid lines. They have an offset. This is a 3-inch offset. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to first floor. We're gonna click on that EW3. Okay, so structure, wall, EW3. I'm gonna put a 3-inch offset on the wall. And then let's start drawing. Okay? So I put the wall here, and if we go to 3D, we can see that the wall is there, but we cannot see it. Okay. Now this wall is only 2 feet tall. If we go to the drawing, these walls are below the slab on grade, but above the top of the footer. right? The walls sit on the footers, which means that this wall right here and the walls, in case you are a little bit confused, the walls are in the middle here. They have all this hashing on them, and then the dotted, not dotted, the dashed lines are the foundations below them. Okay, so this wall right here is at -4.8 because, like I said, they sit above the foundation. TOF means top of footer, which means that the top of the footer is a -4.8, and then the footer goes below that. And then since the wall sits on top of the footer, it starts at -4.8 and then goes until 0, which is where the first floor starts. And we'll eventually um, actually check if it ends at 0 or if it goes higher. As you can see here, the finished floor elevation is actually a -2 in this case, but it does change in different places. Still -2 here, but then as you come across over here, it's 0. And obviously in the basement, it's much, much lower at -14. Okay. So the important information that we can get out of this is that the wall starts at -8, -4.8. So this wall right here, I'm going to click on it. Again, I'm in 3D. I'm going to make the top constraint and the bottom constraint both the first floor, and then make the base offset -8. What that means is the program is identifying that the wall starts and begins at the same place, but I'm putting an offset where it begins to -4.8. Does that make sense? -4.8 is where this wall starts from the first floor, and then it also ends at the first floor. Okay. If we go back, we still can't see the wall. That's because of our range level. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our first floor view. We're going to scroll down until we see underlay, and then we can click on basement and apply. Now we can see the wall, but we still can't click on it and edit it. And we don't want to we want to be able to edit everything from the first floor. So besides dealing with our underlays here, we're also going to go to our extents tab. Okay, so we made the underlay the basement. We're going to go to the extents tab where it says view range. We're going to hit edit. We're going to make the bottom of it, and I'm going to open this so you guys can actually press pause and read this so you actually understand how the view range works. But I'm going to keep the top of it the first floor, but then I'm going to make the bottom of it the basement, and the view depth I'm also going to make the basement. Okay, and that's just going to allow us to actually click and edit everything that's below the first floor. Perfect, below the first floor and up down to the basement. Okay, we have this wall. Like I said, goes from -4.8 to the level that we need, and we have that beautiful 3-inch offset. This is an EW3. I'm gonna keep doing the wall. It goes all the way around, and then we have the inner walls. And in case you're wondering how I knew the wall is an EW3, it does not show us on the structural drawings over here, but it is the same. Well, it might. I haven't seen it, but it might show if you guys pay more attention. But what I'm gonna mention to you guys is that all the walls of the first floor of the building are masonry, and they're actually the same walls that go below. So this M8, as you guys remember, is a masonry wall, 8-inch, and that's what's going to be these walls that go below the slab on grade. Okay, and then we have the EW3 on the outside. And as I was mentioning, it goes around the outside, so I'm going to keep drawing it, and I'm going to try to show you guys the corner of the building. So we have the 3-inch offset, and then we want the base offset should be -4.8, and we want it to be first floor to first floor. We're going to apply that. I'm going to click on, okay, it's going down, so I'm going to actually start from here and go to the top. All right, and then I'll just extend the wall down and to the right. Okay, now that we have the wall, the secret to working with foundations is to take a portion of the wall at a time, and I'll explain what that means in a second. But first of all, let's start with one component at a time. So you can see here that inside the wall we have a pier. Okay, that's because there is a column that starts over here in H1, and the column doesn't go inside the pier. If you go above here on page sheet S002, we can actually see that the piers have a plate right above them where the column rests on. Okay, so the weight of this column is going to rest on this pier, and then it's going to be distributed to this isolated footer over here. Okay, so let's put the pier down and then the footer. So we have a pier which is a P1, and if we go up here, a P1 is going to be it's pretty much a concrete column that's 1/6 by 1/6. Okay, so let's do that. So we're going to go to Revit here, structure column. Sorry, a little fast. Structure column. On the, we're going to select a concrete rectangular column. Okay, and I'm just going to pick any of them. I'm going to hit edit type, duplicate. I'm going to call it P1, and I'm going to make it 1/6 by 1/6. And then I'm also going to duplicate it, and I'm going to make P2 right away because I already know that it is 110 by 1/6. Okay, now I'm going to take a P1. Where is it? I'm going to take a P1, and the P1 rests right on the grid. Okay, take a peek from here. We zoom in. The P1 is right there, resting on the grid. Okay, so that's what this is right here. And right now it says -9, so we're going to change that to -4.8. So that's exactly where that is. Perfect. And then we're also going to take the F5 and put it down. And all of these foundations, from the wall foundations W's and the isolated foundation F's, they're all down here on our footing schedule. Okay, so the F5 is 5 by 5 by 1 foot deep. Okay, so we're going to go to Revit. We're going to click on structure. We're going to go to isolated. And we have these rectangular footers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it, rename it F5, and I forgot what it is. It is 5 by 5 by 1. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to make the foundation thickness 1, and then 5 by 5. And right away, right on the right where the grids cross, that's where the foundation and that's where the columns and piers are going to rest. Okay. If you look on 3D, this foundation is going to lay directly below the column, and then we're going to move on. Okay, so we have this working out beautifully. Perfect. We're going to take a peek here on the corner. After we have this F5 isolated foundation, if we work here to the right, we're going to have a foundation that's not named. This is going to happen very often. There's going to be sections that are not named, but all you have to do is just use the common sense and follow along and try to find something that's has a name on it. So we can see that this is obviously smaller than this one. This one is named W8, and then after it we have this that's not named again. And but if you go to the left here, it looks to be the same. And if we take a peek, it's actually W2. Okay, so we're going to make a W2 right here. Now, I'm actually going to skip the W2 and work with this W8 because right after that, I can show the issue of making foundations and how to avoid it. So I'm gonna quickly skip that and work towards this. And then I'll connect in the middle so that you guys can see how annoying Revit can be and how we can avoid it being annoying. So we have a P2 right here. So I'm gonna take a column. Okay, so it's a rectangular column. We're gonna take our P2. I'm gonna put it right here, and it's in the right orientation. And then right below this P2, it looks like a isolated column because it's so large, but it's actually an isolated footer because it's so large, but it's actually a wall footer, and that's a W8. And if we scroll down right here, the W8 is 8 feet wide by 2'6" deep. And then the length is however lengthy the wall is, of course. So we have 8 by 2'6". So I'm gonna go ahead towards Revit here. I'm gonna click on structure, wall, and then the footers are here. We're gonna duplicate it, edit type, duplicate. I'm gonna call it the W8. and then I'm going to make it 8 feet wide by 2'6" deep. And let me just check if that's correct. Yep, 2'6". Perfect. So we know that the wall that continues here, okay, is going to have this WA. And I'm gonna hit escape here, and I'm just gonna drag this wall. And we know that this wall has the WA. But we know that not all of the wall has a WA. It doesn't go all the way to that corner, okay? So this is where the issue starts. Whenever you have something, whenever you have a wall in Revit, it's gonna try to connect it to the nearest walls, but we don't want it to do that in this case. So one thing here is we don't know because this is not an isolated foundation. It is not like the F5 where it's 5 by 5. It is just 8 foot deep, 8 foot wide, and then however long the wall is. But we don't know how long it go, how much length there is between the P2 and the end of the foundation to the left here, right? Because this W8 goes from here to the end, but we have to understand that a wall foundation just runs along the wall. So we need to cut the wall here so that this WA foundation stops. How do we know this length? In this case, I'm actually going to recommend you guys to use the measuring tools on Bluebeam. So I'm just going to go to set scale, and this paper is this sheet is 1/8 to a foot. Yeah, I'm going to apply the scale, and then I'm going to go to measure, and then I'm going to use the grid line here, and then click on the edge and just hold shift, go to the left here. And at the center of the line, we have 4/6, okay? I'm not even gonna put down the measurement. I just know that it's 4/6. So I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna go to modify. I'm gonna go to split element. I don't recommend split with gap because sometimes you want to split element exactly at a certain spot, and split with gap puts a gap in the spot instead of putting the split. So I'm just gonna split here. Okay, I actually split it at F4.2. I'm gonna delete this W8 from the left side of the wall. Okay, and I'm gonna pull this wall away. Now we have a gap. And again, don't recommend split with gap just because it's gonna put a gap where you want to put a split. But we know that the measurement from the grid line to the end of this is 4/6. So I'm actually just gonna put it down here, a measurement, and I'm just gonna drag the wall a little bit more. We got 4/5, a little bit more, we got 4/6. It's not that complicated. Trying to type it would be harder. Dragging it will work just fine, okay? So we got the 4/6, and now you're thinking, perfect. Got the 4/6, let me connect the wall again. You connect the wall again, it does this. It connects the whole wall and applies the wall foundation to everything. So let's think differently. Okay. This portion of the wall is going to have a W2, not a W8, but it's also not this portion of the wall. Let's run an example here. So I'm going to do structure, wall. I'm going to edit type. I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to create a W2, which, if I'm correct, is 3x1. So let's do a quick check right here. So W2 is 3x1. Okay. So we have this 3x1. I'm gonna hit OK. This is a W2. We know that this wall has a W2, and it looks correct here, but we don't want this W2 to go into this foundation. If we look in 3D here, actually goes into the foundation. You see the spot from here to there, and we don't want two things overlapping each other. And you might think, well, it's no issue. Visually, it looks fine. Why would I mind? Well, in this case, it looks fine because this foundation is the same depth as this wall foundation is the same depth and a smaller width than this isolated foundation. But let's say this was thicker. If this was thicker, it will go from here all the way to the end of the wall. So we actually want to separate, okay? So we're gonna go to first floor, and we're gonna go to modify. We're gonna hit the split tool. And what's good is that the split tool is gonna allow us to perfectly align with the edge of the isolated footer, and I'm gonna crop it, okay? So now we have this wall and we have this wall, and this wall has its own wall footer separate from this one, and we know that we don't need this one, so I'm going to delete it. Okay, so now this wall is on top of the isolated footer, which is what we want. This wall has its own separate footer, so that's good. So perfect. Now we can just connect it. No, it just makes this again. So, and trust me, a lot of students last year did this whole project just suffering like this, just connecting one thing to the other. Like, oh my God, it covered it. Now I got to redo it. And in this case, I only had one cut, but let's say you had multiple cuts and you connect something and just get rid of all of it. So it can be really, really annoying, but there's actually a really simple trick to overriding this. Um, what Revit does. And instead of dragging the wall to connect it, so remember, we have this wall that's just on top of this isolated footer with no wall footer below it. We have this wall with W2, and we have this wall with a W8, okay? To connect these, all you're gonna do is use the align tool, okay? Instead of dragging this wall towards this one and having W2 take away, or connecting this one to this one and having the W8 take away, you're just gonna click on this tool and you're gonna, the align tool, and you're gonna select your reference plane. So I want this wall here to connect to here. So I'm gonna select where I'm connecting it to first, the reference plane, and then I'll select the wall. And look at that, no issue. Now we have this wall with our beautiful W8 over here. We have this wall with our W2, and then this wall with nothing under it, just sitting on top of the isolated foundation. If you guys want to take a look in 3D, this, I'm gonna, let me give it a color here. Let me give it a consistent color. This is what it looks like, okay? We have our column, sorry, our pier that rests on the isolated footer, which is separate from this wall with a W2 footer, which is separate from this wall with a W8 footer. And I'm actually gonna hit Control Z here, and I'm gonna show you guys if I connected this, sorry, if I connected this, how the thick foundation the thick wall foundation goes through the isolated foundation. That's why we have to crop this wall, even though the other one didn't show up. Okay, so I'm gonna go back here again, align tool, select our reference plane, then what we want to connect, and boom, now we have our beautiful separate things that stay separate and don't bother anybody. Okay. um Then one last thing that you guys are gonna have to worry about is there is a column sitting on top of this pier. That's the reason that the pier is there in the first place. Um, you guys are going to know what columns these are from this drawing right here. This is the column and base plate layout plan. This tells you exactly which column is in each place. Okay, and mine are actually marked because of different assignments that I've done, and I've marked up this document a few times, but you guys shouldn't have any color here. You're just gonna have the what type of column you have on each place, and those are the columns that you're gonna use in your drawing. For my um, demonstration here, I'm actually gonna go to structure column, and I'm gonna go to the HSS hollow structure section column, which is what we're using. But the only one that we have right here is the 6x6x5/8, which is, I'm just gonna use it just to put it down and show you guys how it works. But you guys, when you're doing the project, you should actually choose the one that's detailed in the drawings, okay? And I noticed on the drawings, this one is not a 6x6x5/8. I think the one that's here, it's a 6x6x half, okay? So I'm gonna put it here, and it looks just like the drawing, right? What you guys have to worry about is that it's a -9. So if you look through here, it's just going through everything. But what is actually happening is that this column is sitting on top of this pier. So it shouldn't go into the pier whatsoever. So we're gonna click on the column, and we're gonna just hit 0, and sorry, I'm just gonna make it go, I'm gonna make the top level just the second floor, and then I'll leave the base level as the first floor and make it 0. Okay. And when we look at it in 3D now, this is an actual column sitting on top of the pier. And I don't know if it goes to the second floor. You guys can deal with that later. But foundation wise, this is what's sitting on top of it. Okay. And all you guys will have to do is load in the correct columns from the Revit library. All right. So we got through that, and you guys now understand how it's better to work in pieces, right? You have this piece of the wall, then this piece of the wall, and this one. Um, let's work through a footing snap, which really is much of a demonstration. There's not, it's not very different, but let me just make sure that I go through it so that hopefully it can answer some questions that you guys might have. So again, we know that we have a W2 here, and it's a -4.8, okay? And just to highlight what I was explaining before, -4.8 is the top of the foundation. So as you can see here, all of these foundations have the same top, but they might not have the same thickness, right? And this pier is actually incorrect here. It should be -4.8. But yeah, the top of the foundations is -4.8, but that doesn't mean the depth of the actual foundation. That's just where the wall starts and where the top of the foundation is. But back to the drawing, we have a W2 here, a -4.8. So we have this portion of the wall, and I already know that this portion is not going to have a not going to have a footer there. So I'm going to go to modify, use our split tool, and split it. Zoom in here and just split the wall right where that ends, and I'm just going to bring it out. Let me cancel that. I'm going to recommend to you guys that you simply just separate something, put the foundation and fix the level of everything that's happening, and then just use the tool to just boom, boom, connect it back, right? And then you have like separate wall. You have two separate walls that do connect, as opposed to connecting it back and Revit making it into a one solid wall again, okay? So I separated the wall there. I know on the drawing that I'm gonna go from this wall footer to another isolated footer. So I'm actually going to create another separation here. Doesn't matter where, honestly. It's as long as you have an isolated wall, you can do with it what you need, and then deal with connecting it later. So we have an F6 here. So I'm going to put a P1 and then an F6. We already have a P1 created. An F6 is 6 by 6 by 1. So I'm going to go to structure, isolated. We have our F5. I'm going to duplicate it, make it into our F6. And then I'm just going to make it 6 by 6 with a 1 depth. Beautiful. I'm going to click on that cross section between G and 1. And then I'm going to go to structure and our columns. I'm going to take our P1 and also put it there. There we go. And then you guys will, again, you guys will worry about this correctly later. You guys are going to have the actual column later, but I'm just going to put a column here just so you guys can really connect this drawing to what we're doing so you can understand what's happening, okay? So, first of all, just check, we're still at -4.8, so the wall is a -4.8. The pier automatically goes to -9. Let me actually delete the pier, and if when you're placing it, oh, never, yeah, if when you're placing it, you give it the height that you want, next time you place it, it will be the same height. So let's put 4.8 here before we even do this, and then put the pier down. There we go. Now the base offset's -4.8 right away. And if we look at it in 3D, it will check out. See that? Right there. And our pier right here doesn't connect it. It's also -9, so I'm gonna make it -4.8. There we go. Now the wall is actually sitting on it. Beautiful. Having 3D open and doing these quick checks is always helpful to you guys. We're gonna go back to the first floor, and as I was mentioning before, whatever is inside the pier stays at that height. Not stays at that height. It doesn't have a wall footer, and then what's outside of it gets the footer. So what I'm gonna do is, since I already separated that wall, I'm gonna bring this one right here, and then this wall -4.8 is gonna get the W2 that it needs, So I'm gonna go to structure, wall. I'm gonna give it a W2. And now that we already know how to connect these things, instead of dragging anything, I'm just gonna go to a line tool. I'm just gonna bring it there, and then bring it here. And just like that, that wall that was isolated has come to be exactly what it needed. This wall doesn't have this foundation, the wall foundation. This one does. Everything's working perfect. Awesome. Now, we have this wall coming off of the main wall. This is not an EW3. This is gonna be, I believe this is gonna be an M8, and I'm not. It looks to be. It doesn't seem to be centered, so I'm gonna give it a quick check to see if it is also 3 inches away. It is. So it also has a 3 inch offset to it. So I'm gonna go to Revit, structure, wall, and then instead of the EW3 here, you guys are gonna use an M8. Um, I'm not gonna drag the M8 from the other project. I'm just gonna use generic 8 inches. You guys actually drag the M8, copy and paste the M8 from the other project. Actually, you know what? Let me just tip it. There we go. Is this the M8? Yeah. So I'm gonna Control C here. Go back to our drawing. Control V. Bring it in. And you know what? We can actually use this guy. So let's take the corner of it, move it like this, and then we'll just I'll just make sure that again there's multiple ways of doing everything in Revit. So I'll put this measurement here, and then I'll make sure that it is 3 inches away. There we go. Now we have the offset that we needed, and then I'll just connect the wall to here. Okay. Now we have the wall, and it should be at -4.8 from the first floor to the first floor. Perfect. Let's give that quick check in 3D. Oh, that is too high. Base constraint first floor, top constraint for, oh, there's a top offset. Let's remove that. There we go. Now we're talking. Beautiful. Okay. We have the wall where we want. Now let's take a peek here, what we're looking at. So we have a footing step. Okay. Now you guys had to answer a question about this on the reading drawings assignment. So you should realize that a footing step means that the foundation is going from one height to another. And then if you look on the drawing, the height might not be directly where the footing step is, but it is with it. It's going to be within that vicinity. What I mean by that is this W2 doesn't even say W2 or the depth, right? I got it from here. And this F6 doesn't say the depth, but I know that it's the same depth as this W2 because there was no footing step. So as long as there's no footing step, even though it looks like there's a barrier here, it's just a transition from W2, a wall foundation to an isolated foundation. It's still at the same height. So we got -8, -8, -8, so -4.8, all the way through here, here. Even going across here, and it repeats -4.8. But if we try to go into this area, we see that it says footing step, and it's pointing to this barrier between the F6 and this W1. Again, it doesn't say right here, but if you just use common sense, you can find it. Okay, so you have this footing step between the F6 and the W1, and between this W8 and the W1 right here. So by the way, to get the measurements of these walls, they are the same walls as in the architectural drawing. So this is 14.2. The outside of the wall, it's 14.2 from this 5-inch wall. So it's actually 5 + 2, 6, 7. So we got from the right of the wall to the inside of the EW3, it's 14.7. Okay. I'm actually gonna go ahead and draw that. So I'm gonna take on the wall, and then I'm gonna bring it up here. And then, as I was mentioning, the outside of it to the inside of this wall should be 14.7. There we go. Awesome. And I'm deleting these measurements, but I recommend you keep them. If for example, the way that these measurements are put down on the architectural drawing, that's how I want you guys to have them for your submission. So the measurement that you take, please just leave it there. You're also going to need all the measurements to your between your grid lines. As I was saying, we have the footing step between this F6, W1, and then W8 and the W1. So on Revit here, as I was mentioning, if the wall is on top of an isolated footer or any type of footer, in this case we have this W8, it's going to rest on top of it and not be different, okay? That's why the footing step is outside of it. So we're gonna go back to Revit, go to modify, take our split tool, and then zoom in, we'll be splitting right there, and another split right there, okay? Now, if you look in 3D, what that means is, and it doesn't create a line, but if you hover over it, you see that the wall that's on top of this W8, it just rests right on the W8. But then we're gonna figure out what happens to this wall and what happens to this wall. Again, if it rests on top of the F6 right here, okay, it's just going to rest on top of it and not be bothered. So we're gonna go back here, look at the drawing again. So we have a W1. Let me quickly create a W1 and an F8 because we don't have those. And if you want, by the way, you can start. Sorry, we're deep within the video, but if you want to pause and just create all these guys, you're going to use all of them. I think the only one that you might not use is the F11, but even so, it takes 2 seconds. So you can go ahead and create these guys. So a W1 is 2 feet wide by 1 feet deep. So let me go to structure, wall. I'm actually going to take the W2, edit type, duplicate, call it W1, and then instead of 2 feet wide, it's 1. There we go. So we know that these walls, and we know that this wall takes a W1, we know that this wall also takes a W1. And as you can see, because I split them beforehand, I didn't have to like separate them and connect them. You guys are gonna have to make a call whether you want to separate something and connect it later, or make the cuts this way and then apply the foundations to them. Okay. So now we have these walls with W1s, and they're not fully like that. They don't have the W1 all across because there's actually an F8 right here. Okay. So, and these W1s are actually a negative 2.8. So we're gonna take these walls and we're gonna make them negative 2.8. And now you can actually see where the footing step is, because as opposed to here, from this W2 to this F6, there's no solid line because it starts at the same spot. The top of the footer is at the same level. This top of the footer is actually different. So there's a solid line that goes across them. And I'm not going to touch it because it highlights it, but you can see between this foundation, there's a solid line, as opposed to between this one and this one, okay? And if we look in 3D, this is what that looks like. Because of the level of the street and how what type of soil is below the building, you're gonna have different depths that the foundation goes to so that it can be on a good strong soil that will hold the building. So this foundation is actually going to be a negative 2A, while these on the outside are a negative 4A, okay? And that's why this one is higher. And that's what this footing step looks like. And again, if you were to separate it and connect it, it could give you trouble. Give it a try. The way I was doing it here, you saw I connected it, it gave me trouble. All you have to do is press Control Z, you know. Control Z is the shortcut to undo. Okay, it's just Control Z. So do it your way. I'm not gonna tell you have to do it this way. Do your way, but I just wanted to give you guys these tips and try to show you how you can avoid these problems. Make sure you don't forget about the align tool because it's really going to help you. And then also don't forget about the split element tool. Do not use split with gap, or do. I'm not forcing you guys to do anything. I'm just trying to give you guys solutions to problems that you may come across. Okay. But yeah, obviously there's an F8 here, but the purpose of this video was just to try to be brief. I take forever to do everything, but just to try to show you guys the problems that you may come across and how you can avoid it, and also show you guys what this is going to look like. Really explain how the columns don't go inside the piers, and this is what they look like, and so on and so forth. The footing steps and everything. But hope this video was helpful, and um, but yeah, continue doing this. There's going to be plenty of footing steps for you guys to deal with, especially in this area here, because there's a lot of this difference in elevation. But I know it may look scary, guys, but I'm gonna give you my advice. This is just busy work. Once you get rid of the annoying part, which I already showed you guys how to avoid the annoying part, it's just busy work, and you guys have 4 weeks to do this. So, um, do it, do it. Be productive, but take your time, and hopefully we'll be even done before 4 weeks. Sounds good? All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I'm not a YouTube channel. Um, but yeah, hopefully it was helpful, and goodbye. I'm gonna talk forever. Bye, guys.